Hello, welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries, Pacific Northwest. Today we're at Chitwood Cemetery, located in Chitwood, Oregon, Lincoln County. Alternative names, none that I know of, so let's go meet some of the local residents and hear a story. A little history about this cemetery is established in 1890 per the Oregon Burial Site Guide, and it states there's about 117 burials known as of 1978, and 4 more being added, bringing a whopping total of 121. Find a grave today is showing 125 memorials though, so not much has changed since 1978. The last entry for this burial in this cemetery was 1991, per Find a Grave is true. I also read in my Oregon Burial Site Guide that the cemetery has been neglected since 1978. I mean, I guess we'll see during the tour. It does look like it's in pretty good shape now. There's American flags up, so somebody's taking care of it. One note states the cemetery is overgrown, it is unmarked, and many headstones are toppled over and unidentifiable. Chitwood was named after Joshua Chitwood, who lived near the community when the railroad was being built between 1881 and 1885. I think he's buried in Mill City, though. This particular railroad station was on the line of the Southern Pacific Company between Corvallis and Toledo. Still active, but no trains make stops here from my understanding, just passing by these days. More importantly, there is a historical covered bridge here. I know some of you guys go nuts over that. Maybe we'll stop by at the end of the video, but that covered bridge was built in 1926 and it was scheduled for demolition in 1984. However, luckily, it was saved via a federal restoration fund. Today, we'll hear the story of why you shouldn't drink piano polish, meet a woman and her daughters whose lives were cut short, learn about the dangers of railroad hand carts in the 1800s, and finally hear the story of the famous Civil War eagle mascot who survived falling from a nest, being captured, shot at, and avoided assassination. Somewhere in the cemetery is the resting place of James Thomas Chitwood. Pretty serious looking dude, huh? Born in 1825 in Indiana, it looks like his family moved to Illinois a few years later, though. He would marry Margaret Lentz, who hailed from Bavaria, Germany, and they made their way to Oregon in 1850, landing in Damascus at first, but then moving to Lincoln County in 1889. I did read that James's father and mother immigrated to California in 1850, visited Oregon as well, and returned to Iowa in 1852. Then they joined up with the family and moved to Oregon in 1853. I believe James's father is buried in Salem, Oregon, though. Just east of Chitwood is the small community of Eddyville. We're stopping by Felonice Manuel Eddy's resting place because her husband, Israel Eddy, was part of history in this area. If you haven't put it together by now, Eddyville was named by and for Israel Eddy. However, the post office moved several times, and the name changes were frequent. It was first called Little Elk, then Israel moved the post office claiming the name for himself, Eddyville. 4 years later, it moved to its original location, was named Little Elk again. Then it moved again and named Eddyville. 7 years later, it moved back to its original location yet again, but I guess they got tired of the name changes and said, just leave it at Eddyville. Perseverance wins, I guess. An interesting tidbit on Israel, he was described as a very large man and strong. I guess he was known to take brawlers by the neck and dunk them like in horse troughs like LeBron James apparently. Another story states that he showed up at a wedding and proceeded to tell everyone that he was sick from the flu and accidentally drank piano polish, mistaking it for medicine. Okay. Note mentions that he also allowed the Valley and Silt Railroad the right of way through the land he inherited, with the understanding they'd name it the Depot Eddyville. Apologies on the screenshot. The terrain around here is interesting, so camera view might be crooked, but up ahead is Effie Trapp Pruitt, who was born in Benton County, Oregon. Her time was pretty short on Earth, sadly. She married Sidney Pruitt in 1887, who is buried at the cemetery, I believe. However, 5 years later, Effie and her daughter Ethel were traveling by handcar along the railroad. Handcars, also known as pump trolleys, pump car, rail push trolley, jiggers, Kalamazoos, Gandy dancer, rail bike, and my personal favorite, the velocipede, came into play during the 1860s in America, using a hand crank that spun to propel the car. Apparently these things were like death traps and killed men, and they were out of service by 1887, but still used by railroad shops for the most part. Section gangs, aka railroad workers, would use these for building railroad sections, and it was dangerous work. Many men died during railroad construction from my readings due to unexpected trains. During the 1900s, train speeds advanced, making them even more deadly. For all you weightlifters out there who are feeling competitive, every year in California they hold the Folsom Handcart Derby to see who can cross the finish line in the fastest time. Anywho, back to Effie and her daughter. Upon traveling the railroad track, they were unaware that a special train was traveling on the tracks as well, on the Oregon Pacific line. They would be hit and killed. Effie was only 24 at the time, with her daughter listed as 1-year-old. Our last stop's marker doesn't exist that I know of, like many of the markers here in entries in Find a Grave. It does say row 3 though. W.E. Durkee, his only entry in the Find a Grave for the most part is that he died in 1928. Some sources say he was 90 though when he perished. I did read a Find a Grave note that he served in Company G of the 8th Wisconsin Infantry during the Civil War and lost a leg. One of the things the 8th Regiment was famous for was their mascot, Old Abe, a live bald war eagle who actually accompanied the regiment in the battle. Old Abe's story is a bit interesting. He was captured by Chief Sky in the spring of 1861. I guess Chief Sky saw like 2 eagle fledglings in a treetop and decided to cut down the tree to capture them. One sadly died from the fall, but one did survive luckily, thus becoming Chief Sky's personal pet. In 1861, the eagle was traded for a bushel of corn and lived in a tavern for a bit, until some Union soldiers bought him for $2.50. One captain then named the eagle after Abraham Lincoln, thus Old Abe was born. In fact, the bird was so well loved, the ace name was changed to the Eagle Regiment. As said, he accompanied the Union in battles and sat on top of a specially made perch just for him. Newspapers, of course, loved this, stating that the eagle soared above the battlefield during fights, sort of rallying the Union soldiers. Witnesses mentioned it was indeed a bit exaggerated. In one particular fight, a bullet did cut through a cord that held the eagle in place. Thus, he just took off. Old Abe was shot through the quill, 3 of his quill feathers, in fact, but no blood spilled, luckily. But the eagle flew about 50 feet down the line, hence the newspaper, kind of caught wind of that and saw it and had some extreme storytelling there. Old Abe would spread his wing and scream at the enemy, though, during battles. The eagle also grew a reputation for not being well liked by Southerners and their civilians. One Southern girl is noted as Union soldiers passed by her town, yelling, "Oh, see that Yankee Buzzard," at Old Abe, which the 8th Wisconsin didn't take too kindly to and quickly made some comments that caused the girl to flee to her house. I don't know what they said to her. Confederate troops actually made efforts to capture and kill the bird. Luckily, they failed to do so. At the end of the war, the eagle will be rewarded with a great feast on July 4th, 1864, and then given to the state of Wisconsin. Old Abe would be classified as a war relic and be given special dwellings at the Capitol building, a 2-room apartment with a custom bathtub for the eagle and a special caretaker. He became a celebrity in his retirement. However, in 1881, a fire broke out in the basement of the building. The eagle would act as a fire alarm and survived, but apparently inhaled quite a bit of smoke, making him weak. He would tough it out for a month, but his health continued to decline. Doctors tried everything, but eventually, March 26, 1881, he would die in the arms of his last caretaker, George Giles. His remains were placed in a glass case, but in 1904, all was destroyed in the building fire, gone forever. Alrighty, time for the tour. It's pretty easy to find for the most part if you come to Chitwood, which I'm not sure you'll ever pass through. It's off the main highway, but if you're in the cemeteries, this is a cool little one. Very quiet too. Apologies on the presentation. I had to keep my voice low because it's right across the street from a little neighborhood, so didn't want to be a jerk and talk really loud. But hope you enjoyed the stories. A little bit of sadness, a little bit of humor, and we got to learn about Old Abe. That was a fun little story. I never knew about that. Unfortunately, had a sad ending, but pretty big piece of history in Civil War. This is Effie and Ethel, the 2 that died in the hand car accident along the railroad. It's kind of a mix of somewhat good shaped ones, and then you come over here and there's definitely some toppled ones. There's one way over there. We'll try to see who that is. I think the report online said a lot of them are face down, so they haven't really moved them yet, sadly. I believe this is Mr. Eddyville's wife. It has their own little special caged-in area. Interesting name. Felonies? Is that how you say that? But I guess don't drink piano polish is what we got from that story. Survived somehow. Maybe it helped with his flu. It's a secret treatment we don't know about. Looks like somebody did some clear cutting. Because I think most of the reports said it was just like heavily overgrown, but like they couldn't even see the headstones. But appears we can now. Interesting setup, huh? Pretty cool Civil War headstone memorial. It's kind of spread out for the most part. Interesting terrain. This one's sinking into the earth. Can't even tell who it is. Didn't even notice this one right here. A lot of moss growth. But it is Oregon. Just heavily covered with growth. Can't make out anything, sadly. Wild man. Interesting last name. As you can see, a couple American flags. They look relatively new. So, like I said, I think somebody might be stopping by to take care of stuff once in a while. At least it's something compared to what other travels, right? Anywho, hope you enjoyed this cemetery and the stories. Give a nice little shot. Maybe we'll stop by the cover bridge. Anyways, have a good day. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. As promised, there she be, Chitwood Bridge. Big giant sign I'll leave there for you guys to read. Looks like it goes back to 1893, but I thought I read it was built in 1926. And then it had some restoration fund because they were going to tear it down. It saved it. So, geez, that's true. What, 101 years old? 100? What year is it? Around there. If there's any bridge builders watching, I hope you enjoy this. Ooh, birds seem to like it. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the little bonus content. I always enjoy the covered bridges in these areas because as we saw at the other one, what was it? Edward Pioneer, I want to say, something along those lines. They're quickly disappearing, so visit them while you can.